What's the most creative way a parent can ruin their kid's childhood? Every few years, my family would make sure one of us kids would go missing for exactly 47 hours. Long enough for a police report, not long enough for a full investigation. My parents would collect the ransom insurance payout, usually around $50,000. Then miraculously, we'd escape and find our way home. They called it teaching us independence. Really, it was a business model. I watched my brother Daniel do his first fraud at 8 years old. My parents left him at a rest stop 4 states away with a burner phone programmed with one number. He had to wait exactly 47 hours before calling. They collected $45,000 from their kidnapping and ransom insurance policy while he slept in a storage unit they'd pre-rented. When he finally came home, my mother hugged him for the security cameras they knew insurance investigators might check. "We're just so grateful he's safe," she sobbed, mentally calculating the profit margin. One time, my sister Pia panicked and called 911 after only 6 hours. No payout. My parents spent months in the basement with her teaching her about family loyalty and following instructions. She never broke protocol again. I spent years preparing for my turn, learning bus routes, memorizing which hotels didn't check ID for their lobbies, which 24-hour businesses wouldn't question a kid hanging around. My father, who worked in insurance himself, drilled me constantly. "What do you say if someone asks why you're alone?" "I'm waiting for my mom. She's in the bathroom." "What if police approach?" "I got separated at the mall. My parents are probably looking for me." Wrong answers meant beatings about how private school tuition didn't pay itself. Everything changed when I turned 12. Mrs. DePillo, my geography teacher, mentioned something odd while grading papers. "Interesting that 3 of your cousins have gone missing and been found over the past decade. What are the odds?" My blood went cold. "Your cousin Liam mentioned the pattern before graduating," she continued carefully. "Said he wished someone had noticed sooner." She left articles on her desk about insurance fraud, how children involved in their parents' schemes were usually placed in foster care. The information terrified me. It was 5 to 10 years imprisonment, and everyone was involved: aunts, uncles, grandparents. It was the family business. My first turn came at 13. My parents dropped me at a truck stop in Ohio with $20 and a prepaid phone. The story? I'd been grabbed at a gas station while they were inside, escaped from the kidnapper's van, found my way to safety. The insurance payout would be $75,000. They'd upgraded their policy. I lasted 36 hours in that truck stop, slept in the bathroom stalls, ate from vending machines. When a trucker asked if I needed help, I almost broke. But I knew what would happen if I ruined this. College fund gone, family reputation destroyed, the business that paid for everything ended. When I stuck to the plan, my parents took me to dinner at a nice restaurant to celebrate. "You did good," my father said, sliding me an envelope with $1,000 cash. "Your cut." The breaking point was my cousin Lily. She'd just turned 8, the minimum age my family considered safe for the scheme. But her parents were getting greedy. They'd bought a special circumstances policy that would pay out $200,000. The catch? She had to show signs of trauma for it to pay the full amount. They were planning to leave her for 72 hours. In November, in Michigan. The night before Lily's turn, I made a choice. I slipped her my old smartphone with a video saved on it. 20 minutes of me explaining everything. Insurance documents I'd photographed. News articles about kids who died in similar schemes. "If you get scared," I whispered, "you call 911 immediately. Tell them your parents left you there for insurance money. Tell them you want to go to a safe home." They dropped her at a rest stop the next morning. I watched them drive away, leaving their 8-year-old daughter alone in freezing weather for money. But Lily was already like them. She waited the full 72 hours. Played the traumatized victim perfectly. The insurance company paid out the full $200,000. That's when I got the text. "Unknown number. We have documentation." I stare at my phone screen for 20 minutes straight. My hands shake so bad I almost drop it twice. Someone knows about the video I gave Lily. That means someone watched it. That means everything I explained about the fraud, all the insurance documents I took pictures of, all the dates and policy numbers, everything is now in someone else's hands. I delete the message and turn off my phone. My finger hovers over the power button for a second before I press it. The screen goes dark, but I know that won't make the problem go away. I shove the phone under my pillow and sit on my bed staring at the wall. My brain keeps running through possibilities. Maybe it's someone from Lily's family who found the phone. Maybe it's a teacher who saw something. Maybe it's someone way worse. I don't know which option scares me more. At dinner that night, my parents pop open a bottle of champagne. They're celebrating Lily's successful return and the $200,000 payout. My mother laughs about how perfect the timing was. My father raises his glass and talks about family loyalty. Every smile at the table feels like a mask. I wonder if the person who texted me is watching our house right now. Maybe they're sitting in a car down the street taking pictures of us through the window. I push roast chicken around my plate with my fork. The food tastes like nothing. My mother asks if I'm feeling okay. I tell her I'm fine, just have a lot of homework. She nods and goes back to discussing investment strategies with my father. I excuse myself early and head upstairs. My legs feel weird walking up the steps, like they might give out. In my room, I close the door and lean against it. I turn my phone back on and watch the screen light up. 3 more messages from the unknown number pop up immediately. The first one asks if I got their message. The second one says they need to talk to me. The third one says this is important and I shouldn't ignore them. My stomach twists into a knot. I realize ignoring them won't work. They'll just keep texting or maybe do something worse. I type out a response asking who they are. I delete it. I type something else asking what they want. I delete that too. I go through 5 different versions before I settle on something that sounds normal. I just type, "Who is this?" and hit send before I can change my mind again. The response comes back in seconds. My phone buzzes and I nearly throw it across the room. The message says there's someone who saw my video to Lily, the one explaining the insurance fraud, the one with policy numbers and dates. My vision gets blurry for a second. I have to blink a few times to clear it. That means they have specific details, not just guesses or suspicions. They know exactly what I told Lily. They probably have copies of the documents I showed her. I type back asking what they want from me. My hands are shaking again, and I have to retype the message 3 times to fix the spelling mistakes. They reply that they want to meet in person to talk about options for everyone involved. The words make me feel trapped. I'm stuck between being scared of my family finding out and being curious about who this person is. What if they're trying to help? What if they're trying to set me up? I don't know what to do, so I text back that I'll only do texts, no calls, no meetings yet. They say okay, and that they'll be in touch. The next 2 days are awful. I barely sleep at all. Every time my phone buzzes, I jump. Every notification sound makes my heart race. I check my messages about 100 times even when I know there's nothing new. My parents notice something is wrong. I'm distracted at breakfast. I'm quiet at dinner. I forget to do my chores. My father corners me after school on Wednesday. He asks if I'm having second thoughts about family business. His voice sounds calm, but his eyes look hard. I tell him I'm fine, just stressed about a history test coming up. He stares at me for a long time before he nods and walks away. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Thursday morning, the unknown number sends a photo. It's a document, a claim form from one of Daniel's early frauds. I can see my parents' signatures at the bottom. The date is from 6 years ago. They have access to actual insurance records. This isn't just someone who found my video on Lily's phone. This is someone official, someone who works for an insurance company or the government or something. I spend the whole day at the school thinking about it. In study hall, I use the library computer to research insurance fraud investigations. I learn about special investigation units that insurance companies have. They're the people who catch fraud. They have access to all the claim records and can see patterns across different policies. I realize I might be talking to someone whose job is catching people like my family. That night, I text them directly. I ask if they work for an insurance company. They confirm they're with an SIU. They say they're looking into weird patterns in kidnapping and ransom claims. They know about at least 7 times my family has done this over the past 10 years. They say I'm not their target. They say I could help stop this from happening to more kids. My first thought is to protect my family. I know that sounds crazy after everything, but they're still my family. I text back that I can't help them. There's a long pause before they respond. They say Lily is already scheduled for another turn next month. They say they saw it in emails they got access to. The thought of Lily going through that again makes me feel sick. I run to the bathroom and throw up. My mother knocks on the door asking if I'm okay. I tell her I think I ate something bad. I lean against the cold tile floor and think about 8-year-old Lily spending another 72 hours alone in the cold. I think about the fake trauma becoming real trauma. I think about more kids getting pulled into this as they turn 8. I wipe my mouth and stand up. I look at myself in the mirror and barely recognize the person staring back. I walk back to my room and close the door. My phone sits on my desk where I left it. I pick it up and stare at the messages from the unknown number. The next morning, I start watching everything differently. There's a gray sedan parked down our street that I've never noticed before. It's still there when I leave for school. It's there again when I get home. The third day I see it, my hands start shaking. I don't know if my family hired someone to watch me or if it's the investigator keeping tabs. Either way, it means someone is paying attention to what I do. At the school, I catch myself staring at my teachers during classes. I'm trying to figure out who might help if I needed it. Mrs. DePillow notices me watching her during geography and asks if everything is okay. I shake my head and say I'm fine, but I make a mental note that she's already seen the pattern once with my cousins. She might be someone safe. My phone buzzes during lunch. The investigator texts that they get why I'm scared, but asks if I'll meet them one time in public during the day. They suggest the main library downtown on Saturday afternoon. I don't reply, but I can't stop thinking about it. Every time I close my eyes, I see that library. I imagine walking in. I imagine what might happen. Thursday night, my mother calls a family meeting for Sunday. My chest gets tight and I feel like I can't breathe properly. These meetings always mean something bad. Either someone messed up or they're planning something new. I text the investigator asking what happens if I meet them. Do I have to decide anything right away? They text back fast. They say no pressure. Just information about what options exist and what protections are available. They mention that kids who cooperate often get immunity deals. That word sticks in my head. Immunity. It means I wouldn't go to jail for the frauds I helped with. It means I might actually have a way out of this. Friday night, I pull out a backpack and start packing. I put in clothes, some cash I've been saving, the burner phone from my own fraud. I find a list of youth shelter addresses online and print it out. I hide everything in the back of my closet under some boxes. Just knowing I have an escape plan makes me feel a little bit better. Like I have some control over what happens next. Saturday morning, I tell my parents I need to go to the library for a group project. My father says he'll drive me. My stomach drops, but I can't say no without making him suspicious. He pulls up to the library and watches me walk through the front doors. I can feel his eyes on my back the whole way. I find a study room in the back corner and sit down. My hands won't stop shaking. I don't know if I'm actually going to go through with this meeting. A man walks up to my study room. He's maybe 40 years old, wearing a button-up shirt and khakis. He shows me a badge from an insurance company. His name is Stephen Combs, and he works for the Special Investigation Unit. He sits down across from me and thanks me for coming. His voice is quiet and calm. He pulls out some papers from a folder. They're printed screenshots from my video to Lily. I can see the exact frames where I'm explaining the insurance fraud scheme. He's seen the whole thing. Every word I said. Every document I showed her. Stephen starts explaining that his unit has been watching weird patterns in kidnapping and ransom policies for 2 years now. My family's claims stood out because of how precise everything was. Always exactly 47 hours. Always successful escapes. Never any actual ransom demands made to police. He says the patterns are too clean, too perfect. He says they need someone on the inside to testify and help build a criminal case. I ask him what happens to kids who testify against their families. Stephen doesn't lie to me. He says it's complicated. Most kids end up in foster care or with other relatives who weren't involved. He says some families try to get revenge. He can't promise that I'll be completely safe, but he can promise that if we keep doing the frauds, eventually everyone will get caught anyway. And when that happens, the consequences will be way worse than if I cooperate now. Stephen reaches into his messenger bag and pulls out a business card with his name and a phone number printed in plain black text. He slides it across the table to me, along with a cheap prepaid phone still in its plastic packaging. He tears open the package and shows me that his number is already programmed as the only contact. He tells me I don't have to decide anything today, but if I want to help, I should document whatever I can safely access. He mentions a detective named Reese Gibson who works the criminal investigation side and might want to talk to me eventually. I take the card and phone and shove them deep into my backpack where nobody will see them. Stephen stands up and says to be careful, and to reach out if I feel unsafe at any point. He walks out of the study room first, and I wait 5 minutes before leaving so we're not seen together. I walk out of the library into the afternoon sun, and everything feels different now. I know what's coming, and I know I have a choice to make. The family meeting is tomorrow, and I have no idea what they're planning to announce. My father is still sitting in his car in the parking lot waiting for me. I climb in and he asks if my project went well. I tell him it went fine, and we drive home in silence. The rest of Saturday drags by in a blur of homework and dinner and pretending everything is normal. I spend most of the evening in my room staring at Stephen's business card and turning the prepaid phone over in my hands. The weight of it feels huge, even though it's just a cheap plastic rectangle. I hide both items in a box at the back of my closet under some old stuffed animals nobody ever touches. Sunday morning arrives and my mother calls everyone to the dining room for the family meeting. My parents sit at the head of the table looking pleased about something. My father announces they bought a new insurance policy with better coverage and a higher payout. $100,000 for a successful recovery. Everyone around the table starts clapping like this is good news. My mother explains they're planning my next turn for winter break, which gives me 3 months to prepare properly. My aunt says this is such a great opportunity, and my uncle jokes about how I'll be able to pay for my first year of college with my cut. Pia smiles at me from across the table, and Daniel nods his approval. I sit there feeling sick to my stomach while everyone congratulates me like I just won some kind of award. My father goes over the basic timeline and says we'll start detailed planning in a few weeks. The meeting ends and everyone goes back to their normal Sunday activities like we didn't just plan a crime. That night, I wait until everyone is asleep before pulling out the prepaid phone Stephen gave me. My hands shake as I type out a message telling him about the new policy and the winter break timeline. I hit send and then sit there staring at the screen waiting for a response. It comes through within 10 minutes. Stephen says this gives us time to build a proper case, but he asks if I'm safe at home. I stare at that question for a long time, trying to figure out how to answer it. My family has never physically hurt me beyond the basement punishments for breaking protocol, but I don't feel safe either. I feel trapped and watched, and like one wrong move could ruin everything. I text back that I'm okay for now, and he responds, telling me to reach out immediately if that changes. I delete the conversation and hide the phone again before trying to sleep. Monday morning, I walk into school feeling exhausted and anxious. During second period, I ask for a hall pass and head to the guidance office. I tell the secretary I need to talk to someone about stress management. She schedules me with Sally Nguyen, who has a free period right now. Sally is younger than most of the other counselors, and students say she actually listens instead of just lecturing. I sit down in her small office with its motivational posters and comfortable chairs. Sally asks what's going on, and I carefully explain that I'm worried about a family situation that might not be legal. I don't give her details, but I make it clear that I'm looking for information about my options. Sally leans forward and explains mandatory reporting laws in a gentle but serious voice. She tells me that if I disclose abuse or criminal activity involving minors, she is required by law to report it to authorities. The information makes my chest tight because I'm not ready for that level of intervention yet. But Sally also gives me a list of resources, including anonymous tip lines and youth legal services, where I can get advice without triggering reports. She writes down several phone numbers and website addresses on a piece of paper and hands it to me. She says her door is always open whenever I'm ready to talk more, and that I'm not alone in whatever I'm dealing with. I thank her and leave her office feeling slightly less trapped than before. That week, my father searches my room while I'm at the school, and I know because my hidden bag has been moved slightly from where I left it. Nothing is missing from the bag, which means he was checking to see what I had rather than taking it away. The violation makes me angry in a way I haven't felt before. This is my space, and he has no right to go through my things looking for evidence that I might betray the family. I want to confront him, but I know that would only make things worse. Instead, I move my important items to a new hiding spot behind a loose board in my closet that I discovered years ago. I put the prepaid phone and Steven's card in there along with the cash I've been saving. I use the prepaid phone to text Steven asking what kind of evidence would actually help his investigation. He responds with a detailed list: insurance documents showing the policies and claims, family communications about planning the schemes like emails or text messages, financial records proving the payouts went to my parents, testimony about how everything was planned and executed. I read through his list and realized that most of these documents are in my father's home office safe. I've seen him open it before, and I know the combination because I watched him enter it once when he didn't know I was standing in the hallway. Getting into that safe would be risky, but possible if I had the right opportunity. Wednesday night, my mother leaves for her book club meeting, and my father has to work late at the office. That leaves me home alone with Daniel, who is supposed to be watching me even though I'm old enough not to need a babysitter. We order pizza and eat it in front of the television. During a commercial break, I ask my brother if he ever thinks about what we're doing and if it bothers him. Daniel looks uncomfortable and shifts in his seat. He says it's just how our family works and that everyone does it, but his eyes tell a different story. I can see doubt there even if he won't say it out loud. I push a little harder and ask if he ever wanted to tell someone or get help. Daniel goes quiet for a long moment. Then he admits that he tried to tell a teacher once when he was 10 years old. But my father found out somehow, and Daniel spent a week in the basement learning about family loyalty. His voice is flat when he talks about it like he's describing something that happened to someone else. He says he learned that survival means compliance, and that fighting the system only makes things worse. I realize in that moment that my whole family is trapped by fear and learned behavior. The system works because everyone is too scared to break it and too used to it to see how wrong it is. Daniel and I finish our pizza in silence, and I understand that I'm probably the only one who might actually have the courage to end this. The next night, I wait until I hear the shower running upstairs before I move. My mother always takes long showers, at least 20 minutes, and I've been planning this for days. I grab her purse from the kitchen counter and find her key ring buried at the bottom under receipts and gum wrappers. My hands are steady as I pull out the small brass key labeled office in my father's neat handwriting. I watched a YouTube video 3 times about making wax impressions using a candle and a bar of soap. The tutorial made it look easy, but doing it for real feels different. I press the key firmly into the softened wax, making sure to get both sides. Then I put everything back exactly where I found it. The whole thing takes maybe 2 minutes, but it feels like an hour. I hide the wax impression in my closet behind the loose board and wait 3 days for the right moment to actually use it. Friday afternoon, both my parents have meetings that run late, and Daniel has basketball practice. I'm home alone for the first time in weeks. I take the duplicate key I made at the hardware store using the wax impression and head straight to my father's office. The key slides into the lock and turns smoothly. The safe sits in the corner behind his desk, and I know the combination because I memorized it months ago when I watched him open it through the crack in the door. I turn the dial carefully, listening for the clicks. The safe opens on my first try. Inside are stacks of folders organized by year, and I start photographing everything with the prepaid phone Steven gave me. Policy documents with our names on them, claim forms with dates and amounts, spreadsheets tracking payouts over the years, notes in my father's handwriting about which cousins are scheduled next, and how much each fraud should generate. My hands shake so badly that some of the photos come out blurry and I have to retake them. Every sound in the house makes me freeze, expecting my father to walk in and catch me. I spend 20 minutes in that office, photographing page after page, until I hear a car door slam outside. I close the safe, spin the dial, lock the office door, and run upstairs to my room. My heart doesn't stop racing for an hour. The photos show everything Steven needs to prove the fraud. I spend that night reviewing them on the tiny prepaid phone screen, reading my father's notes about estimated payouts and risk assessments. He wrote down which insurance companies are easiest to fool and which adjusters ask too many questions. There's a whole section about coaching kids on their stories and what to do if someone gets suspicious. I send the photos to Steven using the encrypted messaging app he showed me how to use. The messages take forever to send because the files are so big, but eventually they all go through. Steven responds within an hour, even though it's almost midnight. He confirms this is exactly what they need to build a case. He says the documents prove intent and planning, not just one-time mistakes. He texts that we need to talk about what comes after this, about bringing in law enforcement and what that process looks like. I read his message 5 times before responding that I'm ready to talk. Steven's next message comes Tuesday morning while I'm getting ready for school. He wants to bring in Detective Reese Gibson from the Criminal Fraud Division to explain what a full investigation would involve. He promises the conversation would be off the record at first, just information about what's possible and what protections exist for kids who cooperate. I agree to a phone call, but I tell him it has to be from the school where my parents can't trace it. Steven sets it up for Thursday afternoon during my free period. I ask Sally if I can use her office phone for something important, and she agrees without asking questions. She's good like that, knowing when to push and when to just help. Thursday afternoon, I sit in Sally's office with the door closed. Sally stays with me as a witness like Steven suggested. I dial the number Steven gave me, and a man answers on the second ring. Detective Reese Gibson has a calm voice that doesn't sound like the cops on TV shows. He thanks me for being willing to talk, and asks if I understand that this conversation is just informational. I tell him I understand. Gibson explains that insurance fraud at this scale is a serious crime, usually a felony with prison time. But he also says that kids who were forced or pressured into participating are treated as victims, not criminals. He asks about the evidence I provided to Stephen, and confirms it's strong enough to start building a criminal case. He says the documents show clear intent and planning over many years involving multiple family members. The way he talks makes it sound real and scary, and also like maybe there's a way out of this. Gibson keeps talking, and I listen carefully to every word. He explains that a full investigation would involve multiple agencies working together. The Insurance Fraud Division would handle the financial crimes. Child Protective Services would get involved because kids were put in danger. The FBI might join if the fraud crossed enough state lines, which it did because my family operated in at least 6 different states. He can't promise everything will work out perfectly. He says investigations are messy and sometimes things go wrong. But he can promise that I would have advocates, people whose job is to protect kids in situations like mine. He can promise I wouldn't be treated as a criminal. Then he asks if I understand what cooperation would mean for my family. His voice gets quieter when he asks this, like he knows it's the hardest part. I tell Gibson I understand my parents would probably go to jail. My aunts and uncles too. Maybe even my grandparents if they were involved in planning. The thought makes me feel sick and relieved at the same time, which doesn't make sense, but that's how it feels. Gibson says that's a normal reaction. He says a lot of kids in my situation feel guilty about protecting themselves, like they're betraying their family by telling the truth. He suggests I think carefully about whether I'm ready for what comes after. He doesn't push me to decide right away. After we hang up, Sally squeezes my shoulder and asks if I'm okay. I nod even though I'm not sure. She says I'm brave for even considering this, and that whatever I decide, she'll support me. That weekend, my aunt and uncle visit with Lily. She's wearing new clothes and carrying new toys, everything bought with the money from her fraud. She shows me a tablet and a bike and a whole collection of dolls she picked out. My aunt brags about how well Lily handled everything, how mature she was, how she never broke character even when she got scared. Lily smiles and plays with her new things, but I watch her carefully. When my uncle closes a door too hard, she jumps and drops the doll she's holding. When my mother suggests Lily go play in the basement, she makes an excuse about wanting to stay upstairs. She doesn't like being alone in rooms anymore. I notice she keeps checking to make sure adults are nearby. The trauma they made her fake for the insurance payout is becoming real trauma, and she's only 8 years old. That realization makes my decision feel clear. I can't let this keep happening to more kids. Sunday night, I text Stephen using the prepaid phone. I tell him I want to move forward with cooperating, but I need to know what happens to kids like Lily and me during the investigation. I need to know if we'll be safe and where we'll live and if we'll still see each other. Stephen responds that he'll set up a meeting with a prosecutor who handles these cases. She can explain the process better than he can and answer questions about protective custody and foster placement. The meeting gets scheduled for Tuesday after school at a coffee shop across town, far from anywhere my family might go. Monday night at dinner, my father announces another family meeting for next weekend. He says it's time to discuss business expansion. He mentions that several younger cousins are turning 8 soon, and it's time to bring them into the program. He talks about it like it's a job training opportunity, something positive and beneficial. My mother adds that they've been researching new insurance companies with better policies and higher payouts. She says if they plan carefully, they could generate over $500,000 next year. Everyone at the table nods and smiles. Daniel asks about his cut if he helps train the younger kids. My sister Pia suggests creating a manual with tips and scripts. I sit there feeling desperate and determined. More kids are about to get pulled into this, and I might be the only one who can stop it. Tuesday afternoon, I tell my parents I have a group project meeting at the library. My father offers to drive me, but I say my friend's mom is picking me up. I take 2 buses across town to reach the coffee shop Stephen chose. It's a small place with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls, the kind of place where nobody pays attention to other people's conversations. Stephen is already there at a corner table. Sitting with him is a woman in her 30s wearing a gray suit. She stands up when I arrive and introduces herself as Rafaela Spears, assistant prosecutor. Sally came with me like she promised, and I'm grateful not to be alone for this. Rafaela shakes both our hands and suggests we sit down. She orders me a hot chocolate without asking if I want one, which feels motherly in a way that makes my chest tight. Stephen looks serious but not unkind. Rafaela opens a folder and begins explaining what happens when someone decides to cooperate with a criminal investigation. She opens a folder with forms and legal documents inside and starts explaining how everything would work if I decide to cooperate with their investigation. Her voice stays calm and professional as she talks about testimony and evidence and criminal charges. She says if I agree to provide formal testimony about the fraud schemes, the state prosecutor's office would file charges against all the adults who participated in planning or carrying out the insurance fraud. The charges would be serious because they involve children and multiple incidents across state lines. She explains that once charges get filed, Child Protective Services would step in immediately to remove kids from any homes where fraud was happening. I feel my chest get tight thinking about what that means for everyone. She says they would try to place kids with relatives who weren't involved in the schemes, but she can't promise I'd get to stay with family members I know. Some kids might end up in foster care if no safe relatives exist. The honesty feels scary, but also better than being lied to. Stephen adds that they've already identified several relatives in my extended family who don't appear connected to the fraud and might be placement options. Rafaela continues explaining that I would be protected from any retaliation attempts, with regular check-ins from law enforcement and CPS workers assigned to monitor my safety. Sally squeezes my hand under the table while I process all this information. I look at Rafaela and ask what happens to Lily and my other young cousins who already did frauds. My voice shakes asking the question because I'm scared of the answer. Rafaela's expression gets serious and she says all children would be removed from homes where fraud occurred, including Lily and the others. She explains that even though those kids followed their parents' instructions, they're still considered victims who need protection. The thought of my entire extended family getting broken apart feels huge and overwhelming. I think about holiday dinners and birthday parties and family vacations, all of it ending because of what I'm about to do. But then I think about more 8-year-olds like Lily spending 3 days alone in freezing weather, just so their parents can collect money. I think about the younger cousins my family mentioned bringing into the business next year. Rafaela sees me struggling with the decision and says, I don't have to answer right now. She slides a card across the table with her direct phone number written on it. She gives me 1 week to think about whether I want to proceed with a formal proffer agreement, which is the legal term for my cooperation deal. Stephen walks me and Sally out to the parking lot after the meeting ends. He reminds me that I can call him anytime if I feel unsafe or if my family suspects anything. Sally drives me home and I stare out the window the whole way, feeling like I'm carrying a weight that's too heavy to hold. The next week feels like torture as I watch my family do normal everyday things while knowing everything is about to explode. My mother sits at the kitchen table on Monday morning talking about vacation plans for next summer. She's looking at beach house rentals and asking if I prefer Florida or South Carolina. I eat my cereal and nod at appropriate times while thinking about how she might be in prison next summer. My father helps me with math homework Tuesday night, sitting next to me at the dining room table and explaining fractions in his patient teacher voice. He points at the problems and shows me shortcuts for solving them. I want to scream that he taught me shortcuts for insurance fraud, the same way he's teaching me shortcuts for math. I feel like I'm living in 2 different realities that exist in the same space. One reality is the normal family life with homework help and vacation planning and regular dinners together. The other reality is the truth underneath, where everything is built on crime and lies and using kids for money. My brain can't figure out how to hold both realities at the same time. I keep catching myself almost forgetting about the decision I have to make, getting pulled into the comfortable routine of family life. Then I remember what's real and what's fake and I feel sick all over again. Wednesday after geography class, Mrs. The Pillow asks me to stay behind while other students file out to the hallway. She closes the classroom door and sits on the edge of her desk looking at me with concerned eyes. She says she's noticed I seem really stressed lately and wanted to check if everything is okay. Her voice is gentle and careful, like she's trying not to scare me. She mentions that she remembers our conversation from years ago about my cousins who went missing and were found. She says she's been thinking about that pattern and wants me to know I can talk to her if I need help with anything. The kindness in her voice almost breaks me completely. I feel tears starting in my eyes and I have to look down at my shoes to stop them from falling. I manage to say I'm fine, just worried about some family stuff. Nothing serious. She doesn't push, but she writes her cell phone number on a sticky note and hands it to me. She says to call or text anytime, even outside school hours, if I need someone to talk to. I take the note and shove it in my backpack, then practically run out of her classroom before I start crying for real. I head straight to Sally's office and knock on her door even though I don't have an appointment. She takes one look at my face and pulls me inside, closing the door behind us. Sally sits me down on her comfortable couch and waits quietly while I try to get my breathing under control. I tell her about the meeting with Rafaela and the decision I have to make by the end of the week. I explain how I feel like I'm destroying my whole family by choosing to cooperate. Sally listens without interrupting, and then she says something that helps more than anything else. She reminds me that I'm not responsible for my parents' choices or their criminal behavior. She says they made decisions to commit fraud and involve children in their schemes, and those were their choices, not mine. She tells me that choosing to protect other kids from going through what I went through doesn't make me a bad daughter. She says it makes me brave and strong and caring about people besides myself. Her words help, but the guilt still sits heavy in my chest like a rock I can't move. I ask what happens if my family hates me forever after this. Sally says that might happen and she can't promise it won't. But she also says that sometimes doing the right thing means accepting painful consequences. She reminds me that Lily is only 8, and there are other young cousins who haven't been used for fraud yet. I could be the one who stops that from happening to them. We sit together for the rest of lunch period and she doesn't make me go back to class. She writes me a pass saying I had a counseling session and sends me to my afternoon classes when I feel more steady. Thursday night after dinner, I go to my room and close the door. I take out the prepaid phone Stephen gave me and stare at Rafaela's card for 10 minutes before I can make myself dial her number. She answers on the second ring and her voice sounds professional but not cold. I tell her I've made my decision and I'm ready to proceed with cooperation. My voice shakes saying the words out loud because they feel so final and huge. Rafaela says she's glad I called and that she knows this wasn't an easy choice. She explains that she'll schedule a formal proffer session for Monday morning, which means I'll have to miss school. She says the session will take several hours as I provide detailed testimony about everything I know regarding the fraud schemes. Stephen and Detective Reese will both be there to take my statement. She asks if I want Sally present as my support person, and I say yes immediately. Having Sally there will make the whole thing feel less scary. Rafaela says she'll coordinate everything and will call Sally directly to arrange the details. She reminds me not to do anything that might alert my family to what's happening. She says to act completely normal for the next few days. I promise I will, and we hang up. I sit on my bed holding the phone and feeling like I just jumped off a cliff with no way to climb back up. Friday night, my parents call another family meeting in the living room. Everyone gathers around like we do every few months when there's family business to discuss. My father stands at the front of the room with papers in his hands. He starts talking about expansion plans for next year with excitement in his voice. He says they've identified 4 new cousins who will turn 8 next year and are ready to participate in their first frauds. He talks about it like it's a job training program or a family tradition being passed down. My mother adds that they've been researching new insurance companies with better policies and higher payout amounts. She's made spreadsheets calculating potential earnings if they execute 12 frauds next year. The number she mentions is over $500,000. My uncle jokes about being able to retire early, and everyone laughs like this is normal family planning. People start volunteering to help train the younger kids and offering to scout good locations for drop-offs. Daniel asks what his cut will be if he helps with training. Pia suggests creating a written manual with tips and scripts so the younger kids can study and prepare properly. I sit in my chair feeling completely numb and disconnected from my body. I look around at my family members' faces, seeing their excitement and pride about expanding the criminal operation. I think about how in just a few days, police will be arresting most of the people in this room. I think about how I'm the one who's going to make that happen. Everyone is smiling and planning and celebrating, and I'm sitting here knowing I'm about to destroy all of it. The meeting ends with my father assigning everyone tasks for the expansion project. I go upstairs to my room and close the door, feeling like I might throw up. Over the weekend, I take out a notebook and start writing down everything I remember about every fraud I witnessed or participated in. I start with Daniel's first fraud when he was 8 and I was 6. I write down the date as close as I can remember it, the location where they left him, how long he was gone, how much money they collected. I move through the years, listing each incident I know about, my own fraud, Lily's fraud, my cousin's frauds. I include every detail I can remember about how the schemes were planned and executed. I write down conversations I overheard about buying policies and filing claims. I list the insurance companies my family used. I note which relatives were involved in planning versus which ones just knew about it. The timeline goes back 10 years and includes at least 15 separate incidents that I know about for sure. There might be more that happened before I was old enough to understand what was going on. Writing it all out makes the scale of what my family has done feel real and horrible in a way it didn't before. Seeing it listed on paper, incident after incident, year after year, makes me realize this isn't just a few bad choices. This is an organized criminal operation that's been running for over a decade. I fill 12 pages in my notebook with details and dates and names. My hand cramps from writing so much. When I finish, I hide the notebook under my mattress and feel exhausted and sad. Saturday night, I'm walking down the hallway to the bathroom when Pia comes out of her room and stops me. She looks at my face closely and asks if I'm okay because I've been acting strange all week. Her voice sounds genuinely worried, not suspicious or angry. I almost tell her everything right then. I almost explain about meeting with the prosecutor and making the decision to cooperate and how everything is about to change. But then I remember what my parents did to her in the basement after she broke protocol. I remember how she learned to follow instructions perfectly after that punishment. She's been fully part of the family business ever since, never questioning anything, always doing what she's told. If I tell her what I'm planning, she'll either try to stop me or she'll warn our parents. I can't risk either of those things happening. So instead, I hug her tight and tell her I'm fine, just stressed about school stuff. She hugs me back and says she's here if I need to talk. I hold on to her for a long moment, knowing this might be one of the last normal interactions we have as sisters. After Monday, everything changes. After Monday, she'll probably hate me. I let go and tell her goodnight, then go to the bathroom before she can see me start crying. Sunday morning, I tell my parents I'm going to Sally's house to work on a school project. My mother barely looks up from her coffee and newspaper. My father reminds me to be home by dinner. I ride my bike to Sally's house with my backpack heavy on my shoulders. Inside the backpack, I packed a real bag with important items I might need if I have to leave my home suddenly. I included my birth certificate that I found in my father's office safe. I included my social security card. I packed my favorite photos from family vacations and holidays, the good memories I want to keep even though everything is about to fall apart. I included my favorite books, the ones I've read so many times the pages are worn soft. I packed some clothes and basic supplies. Sally answers her door and lets me inside. I explain that I need her to hold this bag for me in case something goes wrong and I need to leave my house quickly. She takes the bag without asking questions and puts it in her hall closet. She says it will be safe here and I can come get it whenever I need it. Having my important things stored somewhere else, somewhere my family can't touch them, makes the upcoming week feel slightly less scary. I know that no matter what happens, I have some piece of my life protected and separate. Sally makes me hot chocolate and we sit at her kitchen table not talking about Monday, just being quiet together. When I ride my bike home later, my backpack is empty and light, but I feel like I can breathe a little bit easier, knowing part of me is already safe. Monday morning arrives and Sally picks me up at 7, earlier than school usually starts, and drives downtown to the prosecutor's office. The building looks official and serious with metal detectors at the entrance and security guards checking IDs. I show my school ID and they wave me through after checking Sally's credentials. Stephen and Reese wait in a conference room on the third floor, along with Rafaela and another woman who introduces herself as the stenographer, who will record everything I say. The room has a long table, uncomfortable chairs, and a recording device set up in the center. Rafaela explains the proffer agreement one more time, making sure I understand that my cooperation means immunity from prosecution for my own participation in the frauds. I sign papers that Sally helps me read through, and then we start. The session lasts 4 hours with only one short break. I explain everything from my earliest memories of Daniel's first fraud when I was 6 years old. I describe how my parents planned each incident, selecting locations and timing everything precisely. I talk about the storage unit rentals, the burner phones, the practice sessions where they drilled us on what to say. I explain the punishment system, how Pia spent months in the basement after calling 911 too early, how that taught the rest of us to follow instructions perfectly. I describe my own fraud at the truck stop in Ohio, the fear and loneliness of those 36 hours, the relief when it ended, and the guilt about taking my cut of the money. Rafaela asks specific questions about policy numbers and payout amounts, and I give her everything I remember, plus what I photographed from my father's safe. Stephen asks about the extended family involvement, so I list aunts and uncles and cousins who participated over the years. Reese wants to know about Lily's 72-hour ordeal, so I explain the special circumstances policy and how her parents plan to leave her longer in colder weather to generate more trauma. The stenographer's fingers move constantly across her keyboard, recording every word. During the break, Rafaela brings me water and a granola bar from the vending machine. She sits across from me and explains that based on my testimony and the documents I provided, they have enough evidence to charge multiple adults with insurance fraud, child endangerment, and conspiracy. She says the fraud charges alone carry 5 to 10 years and the child endangerment adds more time. I ask if I'll have to testify in court, and she says probably not, because most cases like this end in plea deals once defendants see the evidence. She promises that my cooperation means I won't face any charges, that I'll be treated as a victim rather than a participant. The investigation will take several weeks to build properly before they execute warrants and make arrests. They need to coordinate with CPS to have placement ready for all the kids who will be removed from homes. After the session ends, Reese walks with me and Sally to the elevator. He explains that removing multiple children from multiple homes requires careful planning with social services. He estimates 2 to 3 weeks before they're ready to move. I ask if I have to go home during that time, and he says yes for now. But they'll move quickly if I feel unsafe or if my family suspects anything. He gives me his direct cell number and tells me to call immediately if anything changes. Sally drives me to the school for the afternoon classes, and I sit through history and English feeling like I'm watching everything from far away. The next 2 weeks are the strangest of my life. I live my normal routine knowing everything is about to explode. My parents discuss plans for my winter fraud, talking about which truck stops have good security cameras nearby for the fake abduction story. My mother shows me weather forecasts for different locations, trying to pick somewhere cold enough to seem dangerous, but not actually deadly. Pia does her homework at the kitchen table and Daniel practices basketball in the driveway. My extended family texts in the group chat about Thanksgiving plans and Christmas shopping. I read every message knowing that in a few weeks most of these people will be in jail. Stephen sends me updates every few days through encrypted messages on the prepaid phone. He texts that subpoenas were issued for financial records from multiple insurance companies. He tells me they obtained search warrants for 5 different homes. He mentions coordination meetings with CPS to arrange temporary placements. Each update makes my stomach twist with this weird mix of anticipation and dread. Sally checks on me every day, calling me to her office during lunch periods just to make sure I'm okay. I spend those lunch breaks in her office instead of the cafeteria, and she never pushes me to talk, just lets me sit there feeling less alone. Wednesday of the second week, my father gets a phone call during dinner that makes him pause with his fork halfway to his mouth. He listens for a few minutes, asks some questions, then hangs up looking slightly concerned but not alarmed. He tells my mother that the insurance company wants to do a routine audit of our policies, some kind of random quality check. My mother asks if that's normal, and he says it happens sometimes, probably just verifying their records after paying out so many claims over the years. He actually laughs and says they probably want to make sure their good luck customers are legitimate. I keep eating my pasta and pretend to be focused on my food, but inside I'm screaming because I know this is Stephen's unit tightening the investigation. I have to hide every reaction, every sign that I know what's really happening. That weekend, my mother takes me shopping for winter clothes for my upcoming fraud. We go to the outdoor store and she cheerfully helps me try on jackets, testing which ones would work for sleeping in cold weather, but wouldn't look too expensive on security cameras. She discusses which truck stops have the cleanest bathrooms and the best lighting for the parking lots where I'll be waiting. She talks about all of this like we're planning a camping trip, completely casual about the fact that she's preparing to abandon her daughter in freezing weather for money. The disconnect between her attitude and the horror of what she's planning makes me feel sick. I try on a blue jacket and she approves it, saying it will show up well on camera footage. Monday morning of the third week, Sally calls me out of first period math class. I walk to her office and find Stephen waiting there with her. He looks serious and tells me that warrants will be executed Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. across all family homes at the same time. CPS will take custody of all minors, which means me, Daniel, Pia, Lily, and 4 younger cousins. He says I need to be prepared to leave my house with only what I can carry in one bag. He asks if I still have important documents stored at Sally's house, and I confirm that I do. He tells me that CPS workers will arrive at my house with police officers, that my parents will be arrested immediately, and that a social worker will help me pack essentials before taking me to a temporary shelter. I ask what happens to my siblings, and he says they'll go to the same shelter initially, then CPS will work on finding appropriate placements. Tuesday night, I can't sleep. I lie in bed staring at my ceiling, memorizing every detail of my room knowing I might never see it again. I look at the posters on my walls, the books on my shelves, the photos stuck around my mirror, pictures from family vacations to the beach, birthday parties with cake and candles, holiday dinners with everyone smiling, all these normal moments that existed right alongside the crime, all these memories that are real and fake at the same time. Daniel knocks on my door around 10 p.m. to say goodnight, something he rarely does anymore. I get up and hug him longer than usual, holding on tight while he asks if I'm okay. I tell him I love him and he says he loves me too, looking confused by my intensity. I wonder how he'll react Wednesday morning when police break down our door. I wonder if he'll figure out that I'm the one who reported everything, that I'm the reason our family is about to be destroyed. I let go and watch him walk back to his room, and I know that everything changes tomorrow. Wednesday at 6 a.m., the pounding on the front door jolts me awake even though I've been lying here staring at the ceiling for hours. The voices outside yell about police and search warrants, and I hear my father's feet hitting the stairs as he runs down in his pajamas. My mother starts screaming questions from their bedroom, her voice high and panicked in a way I've never heard before. I stay in my bed like Steven told me to do, pulling my blanket up to my chin and waiting for the CPS worker who's supposed to come get me. The sounds downstairs get louder with more voices and heavy footsteps, and I hear my father demanding to see paperwork while my mother keeps asking what's happening. A woman's voice cuts through the chaos saying something about multiple residences and coordinated warrants, and that's when I know they're hitting everyone at the same time. I hear Pia's door open and Daniel asking what's going on, and part of me wants to run out and warn them, but I know that would ruin everything. The footsteps come up the stairs and I hear officers clearing rooms, their voices professional and firm as they move through the house. My door opens and a woman in her 30s steps in with a female police officer behind her, and she introduces herself as Sylvia Contreras from Child Protective Services. She sits on the edge of my bed and explains in a gentle voice that I'm being placed in protective custody for my safety, and that she's here to help me pack some things before we leave. I nod because my throat feels too tight to speak, and she asks if I have a bag ready. I point to my closet where I stashed a duffel bag yesterday, and she helps me add some clothes and personal items while the officer stands by the door. Sylvia asks about homework and school supplies, and I grab my backpack with textbooks and notebooks, moving on autopilot while my brain tries to process that this is actually happening. We walk down the hallway past Pia's room where another CPS worker is helping her pack, and I see the confusion and fear on my sister's face as she watches me go by. The stairs feel like they take forever to descend, each step bringing me closer to the living room where I can hear my parents' voices. When we reach the bottom, I see my father and mother both in handcuffs with officers standing beside them, and the room is full of people in uniforms and suits going through drawers and cabinets. My mother is crying and demanding to know where they're taking us, and my father's face is red with anger as he argues about lawyers and rights. Sylvia guides me toward the front door with her hand on my shoulder, and that's when my father's eyes lock onto mine across the room. I watch his expression change from anger to confusion to sudden understanding, and his mouth opens slightly as he realizes what I've done. He knows I'm the one who reported everything, that I'm the reason police are in our house taking his children away. The look on his face makes me feel sick and relieved at the same time, and I have to look away as Sylvia leads me outside to her car. The morning air is cold and I can see other CPS vehicles parked along the street, and I wonder if my aunts and uncles are being arrested right now too. Sylvia opens the back door of her sedan and I climb in, setting my bags on the seat beside me while she gets in front. As we pull away from my house, I look back and see Daniel being escorted out by another worker, and the last thing I see is my mother's face in the window watching us leave. The drive to the shelter takes about 20 minutes through early morning traffic, and Sylvia talks to me in a calm voice about what happens next. She explains that the shelter is temporary, that they'll work on finding a more permanent placement soon, and that I'll be safe there with other kids in similar situations. When we arrive, the building looks like an old school that's been converted into housing, with brick walls and small windows and a chain-link fence around the property. Sylvia walks me inside where a staff member checks us in, and then we go down a hallway to a large room with several beds and lockers. 2 younger kids are already sitting on beds near the window, and when they turn around, I recognize them as my cousins from my uncle's family. Before I can process that, another door opens and Lily runs across the room toward me, her face streaked with tears. I drop my bags and catch her as she crashes into me, her small body shaking as she sobs into my shoulder. I hold her tight while Sylvia explains that we're all safe now, that our parents can't hurt us anymore, and that everything is going to be okay. The shelter feels nothing like home with its plain white walls and industrial furniture, and the smell of cleaning products and the reality of what I've done starts sinking in for real. I'm not going back to my room with my posters and my books, not eating dinner at our kitchen table, not sleeping in my own bed tonight. This institutional space with its hard floors and fluorescent lights is my life now, and I have no idea what comes next. Over the next few days, I meet with so many people that their faces start to blur together. Rafaela comes with Reese and a lawyer named Daniel Simmons, who explains that he's been assigned to represent my interests in the CPS case. They sit with me in a small conference room at the shelter and lay out what happened during the raids. My parents and 6 other adult relatives were arrested and charged with multiple counts of insurance fraud, child endangerment, and conspiracy. The evidence I provided was crucial for getting the warrants and the searches turned up even more documentation that my father kept in his home office safe. Financial records showing payouts over 10 years, detailed plans for future frauds, even notes about which kids were scheduled next. Rafaela explains that the prosecutor's office is building cases against all the adults involved, and that my cooperation means I won't face any charges for my own participation. Daniel asks how I'm holding up and if I feel safe at the shelter, and I tell him I'm okay, even though I don't really know if that's true. Reese mentions that my siblings are at the same shelter and that Daniel has been asking about me, but I'm not ready to face him yet. On Friday morning, a staff member tells me I have a therapy appointment, and I follow her to a small office where a woman in her 40s is waiting. She introduces herself as Dr. Lisa Park, and explains that she specializes in working with kids from criminal families. We sit in comfortable chairs and she asks me to tell her how I'm feeling about everything that's happened. I try to explain the weird mix of guilt and relief, how part of me feels like I destroyed my family while another part knows I stopped something terrible from continuing. Dr. DePark nods like she understands and tells me that feeling both things at once is completely normal. She says recovery is going to take time, that there's no quick fix for processing what I've been through, but that I took the first step by choosing to protect other kids instead of protecting the fraud. She gives me some techniques for managing anxiety, and we schedule another session for next week, and when I leave her office, I feel slightly less broken than before. 2 weeks after the arrests, Sylvia comes to tell me they've found a foster placement for me. The family lives across town from my old neighborhood in a quiet street with small houses and trees lining the sidewalk. Tom and Jennifer Patterson are in their 40s with experience fostering teenagers, and when Sylvia drives me to meet them, they seem genuinely kind. Jennifer shows me to a bedroom that's mine alone, with a real bed and a desk and curtains on the windows, and she tells me I can decorate it however I want. Tom explains their house rules, which are pretty basic, and they both emphasize that they want to give me space to process everything, while also being available if I need support. That weekend, they take me shopping for school supplies and clothes, and Jennifer helps me pick out some posters and decorations for my room. Starting at a new school on Monday feels overwhelming, but Sally coordinated the records transfer and made sure my teachers know I'm dealing with a difficult situation. Nobody at this school knows my story or my family's crimes, and I'm grateful for the chance to just be a regular student. The first few weeks are hard as I adjust to new routines and try to figure out who I am outside of my family's fraud scheme. Rafaela updates me monthly about the legal cases, usually calling on weekends when I'm at the Pattersons' house. She tells me that my parents decided to take plea deals instead of going to trial, probably because the evidence against them was overwhelming. My father got 8 years and my mother got 7, and the other relatives received similar sentences ranging from 5 to 10 years depending on their involvement. The insurance companies are working on recovering money, but a lot of it was already spent, so they'll probably only get back a fraction of what was stolen. Lily and my younger cousins were placed with relatives who weren't involved in the fraud, aunts and uncles who lived in different states and didn't know what was happening. Rafaela says they're all doing okay and getting therapy, and that Lily asks about me sometimes. 6 months later, I'm settling into something that almost feels like a normal life. I see Dr. Park twice a week, and we work through the complicated feelings about my family and what I did. I still feel guilty sometimes when I think about my parents in prison or my siblings scattered across different placements, but I also sleep better knowing that no more kids will be forced into fraud schemes. The Pattersons are helping me plan for high school next year, and Jennifer took me to visit a few schools so I can decide where I want to apply. Sally checks in with me regularly and has become someone I trust, and she tells me she's proud of how far I've come. I'm starting to believe that I can have a normal life, that I don't have to repeat the cycle my family trapped me in. I'll never forget where I came from or what my parents did, but I'm learning that I can choose a different path. The fraud scheme that defined my childhood doesn't have to define my future, and maybe someday I'll be able to help other kids who are trapped the way I was.